Welcome to Plate Stack Chat. I'm your host, Jason, also known as Jason CF Media, and every week I'm joined by some great guests for some fitness chat. So let's introduce them right now. My first guest is a master of the podcasting arts, having interviewed a huge number of people within the CrossFit space. And if that wasn't enough, he's fast becoming the king of CrossFit satire as well. Although he has foolishly decided to do 100 burpees a day for a year in a leap year. So day 366 could finish him off. Please welcome Peter from Coffee, Pods and Wads.
Hello.
Oh, all of that for a hello. Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah. Thank you. That was very kind. Thank you.
Yeah. Is it, are we going with Peter or Pedro? Because I knew you as Peter pre-Pedro.
I'll answer to anything.
To anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you just say Chase's name when you're talking to him and then don't say anything when you're talking to me, I know you're talking to me. So it's fine.
Okay. I'll look at you. You won't know I'm looking at you, but I'm looking at you. So joining Peter and myself today is an affiliate owner, an analyst, a commentator. He is also one half of the Get With The Programming podcast. And to be perfectly honest, he's quite lucky to be invited on this podcast after booing me during my introduction on Death By. It is Chase Ingraham.
I thought you were going to say I've won half of Death By episodes. I thought that's where you were going.
Oh,
that would be actually.
We don't talk about that.
What's Death By?
You wouldn't like it. It's not your style of show.
A show that doesn't screw over their guests with a fun fact, question, answer. Pedro, Daniel Hiller.
I mean, I would feel bad for myself, but I then heard you the other day getting destroyed by Justin Kotler and Snorri for not being at Wadapalooza.
Oh, yeah. That was good. Quality.
Apparently, anybody that cares about having any kind of career within the CrossFit world should have been at Wadapalooza. And I was not at Wadapalooza listening to that going, okay, yeah, I understand.
Yeah. I would go the opposite direction. Is any competition that cares about the professionalism of their competition and broadcast should invite me to their competition. But, whatever.
I say the same thing. One of us here did.
I don't know if I actually mean it with Jason, but I definitely do mean it with Jason. Wow. I don't want to dilute my belief in Chase by including Jason as some kind of bring a buddy.
Yeah. He's like he really backs Chase, but he also said Jason too. So we really can't really take Pedro's word.
Yeah, his opinion means nothing to us now. Speaking of media then at these events and things like that, I'm glad I've got you both on because I've got to ask some questions about the media world. But first of all, I usually ask my guests if they've ever met each other before. I know you've recorded a lot of podcasts together. Did you actually have the chance to meet yet?
We met at Wadapalooza
3 times.
And then
Wadapalooza, Berlin, and Madison. Very briefly in Madison.
Did I see you at Lowlands? Or did I miss you the whole time? Were you out there?
I think we waved at each other across. You were up really high.
Yeah, that's right. I was in my little table with Mads, separated from everybody, and there's no way you could get to me without jumping over 3 barriers.
Yeah, there's some like a slow wave and some gentle music playing in the background.
Yeah, I think I just waved at a general area. I done it. There's no. I don't think I can see that far.
Nice. But I know you've recorded a lot about you. I really enjoy the like end of year wrap up that you do, Pedro, with on Coffee Pods and Wads with Chase and Bill and who else do you have? I think you had Brian and John on this.
He has a new guy every year.
Yeah. But I think what's good about that is I feel like it's the kind of thing like you could be in a coma for a year and miss everything that happened within the CrossFit world and then just listen to that episode and be like, oh, I've kind of caught up.
Yeah, I think, and it's those kind of ones are fun as well, where it kind of happens by fluke, where I just said, oh, Chase and Bill would be good to do a review of the year. And then it was coming up to the following year. And I said, well, that was good. We should probably do it again. And we added in spin. And then same again this year. It's like, that was good. We should probably do it again. It just kind of, I'm like, organically became an annual thing, but it's fun. It's good fun.
Yeah. But it's good because I realized I'd missed a lot during the year. I was like, oh, and then went back and found stuff that I'd missed. I was like, oh,
I think as well with those kind of things, different people focus on different stuff. So like you could ask, and that's the good thing about like not conflict, but like just varying opinions, where you could ask 5 people, hey, what's your favorite part of the year? And the best answers to that are where nobody answers the same thing, because then you've got like 5 totally different memories that you can pull at.
Yeah. And I mean, that I think I actually messaged Chase immediately after listening to that episode, because there was
Yeah.
the thing about the coaches, like the best coach.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I agree that just going out and grabbing 5 incredible athletes that have already made it to the game doesn't necessarily make you the best coach, but maybe bringing someone up, that's
You are the best
impressive.
recruiter,
Yes.
not necessarily the best coach.
Yeah. Not a great retainer either.
Oh,
So
3 separate jobs, right? Recruiter, coach, retainer. You know,
Yeah.
it's hard to put all those hats on and be successful.
there you go. Gotta get a new hat. That's it. So a couple of things about media that I wanted to ask, as I've got 2 experts like you on, and quite a bit of it stemmed from stuff you've put out, Peter. So I'm going to switch between Pedro and Peter probably every question just to balance things out. One is the clip that you put up from Vellner about analysts and media people maybe not always knowing, like they're not in the trenches, so maybe they don't really know what they're talking about. So I would love to know what Chase thinks about that.
I don't disagree with that sentiment, especially from the athlete, but that is every single commentator in every single sport in the history of mankind and on this planet. That's the deal, right? If I retired last year, I cannot boldly predict and understand what's happening to the athlete who's doing the events in the moment this year, but I can give my best guess and understanding. But at the same time, it's like, I am not a analyst, or sorry, I'm not Nostradamus. You're not a predictor. It's not a sure thing. And how boring would it be if I was correct in my assessment, commentary, and analyzation of anything happening every single time? Where's the joy of that? It's like, this is what's going to happen. Well, then why watch, right? Why have any pro and con, right or wrong? And I think some of the best parts of listening to analysts at any sport is you get some insight. They're making guesses, best guesses with practice that they're used to. But oftentimes, not oftentimes, like when they're wrong or if they're right, there's that conversation you have on the couch. So say I make a comment about what may happen with a certain athlete based off this event. You guys are sitting there as like, I agree, I disagree. And then there's that discourse that's called being a fan and being intrigued. It feels like this is what's going to happen. You sit back, you're like, well, he's always right. So yeah, cool. So he's not wrong, but like, that's just called sports.
I mean, it's not the first time that people haven't quite understood how sort of sports work and commentary works, is it?
It is not the first.
I will also say that that's coming from Vellner, and that's a classic Vellner comment, to be like, to stick the knife in, twist a little bit, have a joke, have a bit of fun. Like, it's said tongue in cheek. He's not like, fuck you guys for, like, it's just said the classic Vellner way.
Other people have done that. But yeah, you're right. Like, that's the fun part. And I think if there can be a understanding on a professional level as the professional athlete and say a professional commentator, is understanding is like, it's not personal, right? I didn't say Pat missed this lift because he's an a-hole. It's this happened, or I think this could happen. It's like, oh, great, we were wrong. It's like, we're making a prediction. I'm doing best guess. Statistically, that's what we're going off of. We're not just throwing out on a whim, but I think that's the beauty of sport when it comes to that. So it's part of it. And it's funny that you mentioned that someone completely disagreed with the purpose of the job while they were describing what the purpose of the job should be listed out, or shouldn't be listed out. The exact purpose of the job of which they were describing it shouldn't. It's like, don't make guesses, put yourself in their shoes, make predictions, say if you're right, say if you're wrong. It's like, no, that's actually it's the job list of what is expected of you as a commentator that they didn't want.
I mean, it was really good for me when they tried to get you fired, Chase, just because nobody knew who I was. Like, very few people had ever. I mean, actually, strangely, Peter did know who I was just because of proximity, probably more than anything else. But like, no one had seen any of the stuff I put up on YouTube. I'd only just sort of started, and then I remember like turning on like a live stream of the Savan podcast and just seeing my face on there. I'm like,
Yeah.
what's this? And they were playing the video I'd made about this petition that, to get you fired. And I was like, oh, that's good. And if it wasn't for that, probably still no one would know. Probably you guys wouldn't be on this show now because you'd be going, oh, who's this guy? We don't know.
I think I came on your show before that happened, actually.
You did actually come
You
on.
and your
You came on the old
one.
Plate Stack Chat,
Yeah.
with Sam and Tom.
Yeah, that was an interesting time. I remember your video. I actually remember you reaching out for comment. And at the time, I was so confused what was happening. I was like, it's probably best to just leave it be. I think that was a response, is that I don't really know what's happening. So for me to guess what's going on, because I'm like in the middle of my job while all this is being brought to me in real time, as you can imagine. But I thought you did a very good job of just giving information and not, actually, I think you do this in all of your episodes, is that you do a very good job of just presenting information out there, not necessarily picking one side or the other. You may give some of your opinion on certain matters, but it's not one side or the other too much. And I thought, I appreciated that when I watched it. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Well, I like to feel that people are grown-ups, and that if you give them information, they can go and form their own opinion.
Yeah. And it's actually okay to
Pedro looks skeptical.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like people are just, I don't know. People are just fucking idiots. Like, if you, like, there's so much. So, like, even just a case in point today, I was looking at Athena and Hiller are doing this coach-athlete relationship at the minute.
Mm-hmm.
And Hiller put up a video about Tia blocking him for their like ridiculous comment on the flooded gym in San Diego, whatever. And he made a short little reel about it, put it up, and Athena screenshot her DMs, like to cut out the person that sent it, but screenshot the DMs. And it was someone had sent her the video that Hiller made of, like, the video was in like benign. It was just like, look, I've been blocked, basically, was all the video said. And it's because I said, oh, I'd buy that book. And she obviously took it as sarcasm. It might have been. And then
I was like,
the person that sent it to Athena said, have you seen this, with like loads of question marks? This is your coach. And I was like, how do you fucking put up with that? Like, that there's people that have this, like, what they perceive as negative, and then it's not good enough that they're annoyed by it. They want you to derail your progress and the improvements that you're making in your own life to also be outraged at something that you don't give a shit about because they're annoyed at it. And then if you don't say, like, yeah, shit, you know what? You're right. I hate him too. Whatever you do outside of that is wrong. And like, if most people, a lot of people, some people, I don't know, people, everyone.
Yeah, we went from some to everyone quite quickly there, but that's good.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like that was why I went the other direction of, like, that annoyed me. When I would watch a video or I would see something and it was like, CrossFit have done this and this is how you should feel about it. And I'm like, don't tell me how I should feel about it, because I might feel about it a completely different way for you. Oh, they've changed the open from 5 weeks to 3 weeks. You should hate that. No, I'm pretty happy, to be honest. 5 weeks of the open is pretty tough for me. So 3 weeks, that's really good. It's just, I'd rather just hear the information. Oh, it's gone from 5 weeks to 3 weeks. These are some of the reasons that, people might be happy, and these are some of the reasons people might be unhappy. And then depending on where you fit within that spectrum, you can probably choose whether or not you're happy. But I don't know, doesn't matter. I'm glad you brought up the negative side of things, though, because that's another thing I wanted to ask you about. Because you put up an interesting video recently. I don't know if I'm in that one, Peter or Pedro. Pedro, you put up an interesting video recently about this idea of, like, being negative and just sort of, or being perceived as being now negative. Is that something you're sort of still finding is kind of floating your way, that people have just sort of, or is it even many people, or is it that small vocal minority?
No, to be honest, I couldn't give a shit. Like, by and large, I don't care. And the thing, like, some people messaged me and said, "Oh, the irony of you complaining about people complaining," and I, like, just ignored or whatever. And I was like, yeah, that's fine if they weren't going to my sponsors and if they weren't going to events and saying, are you sure you want to work with this guy? Like, that was the thing that made me say, like, all right, I will never have an opportunity to address the people that are criticizing to the sponsors and to the events, or to the sponsors and the events. So I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a video. I'll put it up on YouTube. Whoever I need to watch it will watch it, or I'll send it to them. And if anyone ever criticizes me in the future, I'm just going to send them a link to the video. So if anyone ever says, oh, this is so negative, I'm just going to link them the video. And then I'll know, like, if they've watched it, I'll be like, right, you either disagree with me or just piss off, like one or the other. Because the problem I have is it's the same as that person messaging Athena. Like, I don't mind. The beauty of the internet is that if you don't like something, you just don't watch it. You just say, like, no, that, like, for example, fake news, that's not for me. I just won't watch that. I didn't like it last week. Probably not going to like it this week. Instead of annoying yourself, like, I equated it before to, you live in like a housing area. You walk past your neighbor's house who does yoga naked on his living room floor, and you start banging on his window telling him to put some trousers on. Just don't look in the fucking window. And then you go back there the next day at 7 p.m. and you're like looking through his window. Like, it's the same thing. You're going to someone's page that you don't like their content or the tone that you perceive their content to have, but then you return and then you get annoyed again. It's like you're just stuck in this cycle. Like, I've had conversations with current sponsors of the show have told me that people that they sponsor, and just random people, have come up to them and said, oh, I see you sponsor Coffee Pods and Wads. Yeah. Oh, what do you think about his fake news? I think it's pretty negative. Are you sure you want to work with someone like that? Do you not think there's enough negativity around? And like, the thing that annoyed me most is that those people that had that said to them didn't say immediately, what is the purpose of you telling me this? Like, what outcome do you want from this? Do you want me to take the money away from him that I'm giving to him? Do you want me to, like, decentivize him? Is that what you want? And just put them in the position to say, yes, that's what I want. I want you to take money away from that person. Or, no, what, actually, you're right. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Like, they have to pick one or the other, or else the conversation just fizzles out. But I think that's what annoyed me the most, is that it's not a lot of people. It's some people. Anytime I make a story about anyone, there's two reasons that I'm doing it. Reason number one is I like the person and I like what they're doing, and I want to show other people what they're doing, and it's a kind of lighthearted way of doing it. And the other reason is I think they're a bit of a prick and they deserve to be taken down a peg or two. So maybe they've done something stupid, said something stupid, like been mean to someone, done something that I didn't like. So I'll make fun of them. Or in the case of, like, I've done Savan before, I've done Hiller before, like people who I respect, people who I think, hey, they're doing a really good thing here. Or like Savan's behind the scenes is coming out, and like, maybe if 2 other people click on his profile because I tagged him in this video, like, that's good for him. That's 2 more people, that kind of thing. Or it could be someone who I think is like, geez, that was a bit of a stupid thing they did. I'm going to make fun of them for that. Like, one or the other. So if you're ever tagged in it, you pick, is it because I like what you're doing, or is it because I think you're a bit of a prick? It's one or the other.
Yeah, all these people saying, I didn't know he liked me so much. Oh, he's tagging me in these videos. He must really like me.
Although I always tag people, and I was like, so I got, I did a story like 2 weeks ago or something, and I tagged Nikki Brazier in it because she was in the video, and she messaged me and said, not sure why I'm tagged in this. And I was like, and I think Lauren Khalil has done the same before, and it was like, because you're in it. Like, there's a clip of you in it, and I talk about you, so I'm not doing it behind your back. If you want to untag yourself, you can untag yourself. If you don't know how to do that, tell me that you want to be untagged and I'll do it. But I wanted to give you the right of reply. So people have a choice when they see it. They can do one of 3 things. They can lean in, like Kelsey Keel, perfect example. Laughed at it. She was like, oh shit, you got me, basically. Like, I'll do better, whatever. Guy My Heroes laughed at it. Like, I put together about a fucking 3-minute clip of him saying Jesus, and he laughed at it. Other people have laughed at it. Some people don't like it. Fine, untag yourself and just move on. That's it. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It's not like, if every single week was the same person, like, fair enough. That's like just abuse. If I just went after Chase every single week, week after week after week, picked apart everything he did over and over again, yeah, that's like out of order. But if it's like randomly, CrossFit's not that big of a space, so it will be a carousel of the same probably 50 people. But like, once it's not the same 3 people every week, I don't think it's really a big deal. But again, just don't go look at the guy doing naked yoga in his living room. Like, just walk past the house. You don't have to stop.
Do you think it's like as well linked to kind of, you know, as you said, CrossFit is small, and like Chase, we've talked about sport in general, and it just feels like if you're in bigger, more established sports, like you would be getting this kind of satire on, you know, TV. Like people would be doing these kind of things. It would,
I mean,
you're
look at
used to,
any
you know, it's part of the
show.
job, right?
Like, look at
Yeah.
Saturday Night Live or whatever version. I don't know if there's a version in y'all's countries, but like that's the whole thing. And actually, Pedro, we were talking about this today. Is like if you're an athlete and you go on Twitter when you are done competing, or if you go, let's take American football, for example. If a certain broadcaster is calling a game and you went to Twitter and typed in their name, there are thousands of hate messages tagging this person in it. Thousands every game, right? That's just what the world does with people who have no idea who you are as a person, don't even see you as a real human being. That's just what it is. And if you let that, first of all, if you go there and read any of that, like that's on you. That's as much of a problem as like as Pedro's saying. It's like if you go in there and read that stuff, it's just as bad as you watching it to hate on that. So it's like there's no purpose and point of that. Is anyone in this comment section that you are related to that you care what their personal opinion is and it's going to affect you like individually? So it's just part of the game. The amount, I mean, shit, we were just talking. I mean, we started this off as like I had two people create an online petition to get me fired from my job that I have been dedicating my life to for a decade. That I personally believe I have spent all of my time getting better at this craft that I am not perfect at. And I try to be better every single year. And when one event's done, I feel like I need to earn the next event while I'm currently doing that one. That is how I approach this. And I want to be the best at it. And I know I am not, but I do the best I can. And it's funny that someone would take the time to try to tear down everything I did publicly over something that actually had nothing to do with what they believed it was. A perfect example of how people can white knight for other people, which I think is one of the more despicable things you can do as a human being, is be offended for somebody else. Is we are in the middle of a broadcast. It was Granite Games 2022. They even put this as an example in the reasons why I should get fired, which this is the best example of this whole entire problem. On the broadcast, at the top of the stands, there was a mom and a little baby boy, and he had red hair, and the sun was setting behind him, and it looked like his head was on fire. And my comment was, there's red hair, and then there's red hair. And I made a comment about a baby's hair. And that was it, and we moved on. And that was brought to the attention. It's like he's making fun of people's hair and these defenseless kids. And I was like, here's the reality of the situation. That baby was Tim Paulson's son, who I know on a personal level. I've met the kid. I've held his baby. I've shook his dad's hand. I've hugged his mom and his wife. I am good friends with Tim Paulson and that child. The same time, I have a daughter with red hair. I have one of those. Right? So if anybody, not that you should be allowed to do, if anybody could comment on this child, I know him by name, I know talking about the kid, and I have one myself. And I feel like that's the best example of how backwards all of these things are, is they just want to pick one thing and then tear you down for that one. So like once I saw that comment, I was like, we're good. We're good. Like, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. I don't read the comments, positive and negative, right? Like if people say nice things, I appreciate that. If they say negative things, I'm like, all right, thanks for the feedback. Maybe it helps, right? Maybe I should focus something on this way, but unless we have the same last name or we share the same blood, your opinion of me isn't going to keep me up at night.
Yeah. But I do like that they wrote, it's not personal in the petition.
No. Okay, so that one, yeah, it's not personal. I was like, all right, let's go there. It's not personal. However, you couldn't do something more personal than attacking my character, my position, how hard I work, removing me from a job that I use to help support my family, that I have spent my entire CrossFit career studying and prepping to be good or marginally successful at this position. And it's not personal. which is hilarious because my name's at the top of this with a picture of me asking for my removal of this. The best part was like your video comes out, Hiller makes a video or a counter petition, which like 5x whatever they scrounged up from the bottom. And then Savan came and all this talked about, and it just blew up, absolutely blew up in their face. And then I see the next day of this person complaining that people are attacking them, and they never took the time to reach out to them personally and voice their opinions of them. I was like, how funny how that works. Because last time I checked, I didn't get a DM or a text or an email about your issues with my commentary and how it made you feel. Instead, you went out and created a giant non-personal petition to basically remove me from a position I've spent a decade of my life trying to get.
Karma's
The irony of that.
His name is Chase Ingram.
Yeah. I was like, all right. So that's and it like it doesn't bother me. It's like it's laughable, right? And the backwards idea of the whole turnaround of that entire situation is like, well, don't attack me personally. Reach out to me individually. I was like, what?
Ironically, it's probably given you more job security since then.
Well, yeah, it was fun. It was well, during that time it was
not fun. Yeah,
it was not fun, right? But I love this quote, and I've said it before on a podcast, and I've actually said this to friends of mine. Is like, if you have a problem with me, text me, and if you don't have my number, you don't know me well enough to have a problem with me. And that's how I just go about my daily business. Because otherwise, I have no, like, what you think of me doesn't bother me. The same way what I think of you, who I don't know, and you don't know me, should bother you. That's right.
But it does bother them.
And it does bother them. That's the best part. Like, this is a one-way street.
But even like I have, and I'm going to throw my wife under the bus a bit here, but like I've had conversations with my wife about like Hiller and Savan, and like she just doesn't, she's warming to Savan like quite a bit, but like she doesn't like like a lot of his stances on things irk her, and like she doesn't, she just can't get past that. And with Hiller, I remember I got off a call with Hiller, and she was like, "Who's that?" And I said, "Oh, Hiller." And then she said, "What's he like?" And I was like, "Honestly, one of my favorite people. Like, he's stupidly supportive, and he'll take time out of his day. Took time out of his day yesterday to send me a video of doing burpees to show me some. Like, I just asked him a question. He could have just replied like a one-word yes, and he sent me like a 3-minute video of explaining what I was doing wrong. And she was like, "Yeah, no, I don't like him." And then I was like, "Why though?" And she's like, "I just don't like his stuff. Like, it's just a bit like, it's just kind of a bully." Like, and I was like, "Which video though?" And she was like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, which video?" And she goes, "Well, I haven't watched any of them." And I was like, "Fuck me." I was just like, okay, well, I'm not having this conversation with you until you watch one of them. She still hasn't, but we haven't had the conversation again. And she accepts that I'm just friends with him and like that I value him as a person or whatever. But like, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff like that as well. There's a lot of people who don't pay attention, don't watch, don't actually consume any content of the person that they're complaining about, or don't. And like a lot of the stuff as well, you can probably trace back to something. Like even that thing with Chase, you can probably trace that back to some innocuous comment that was made, or to someone feeling like they were slighted or overlooked for an opportunity or something, and then they blame, oh, Chase is like, he's a white American guy who has that job that this person that I know was overlooked for. It's his fault. Let's blame him if he gets removed. And that some of it might be subconscious, some of it might be conscious. And you have that thing of like, I don't like Andrew Hiller because he's calling out the fact that my favorite athlete isn't doing reps. Or do the fucking reps right. That's it. That's it, done. Like, if you just do it right, then what can he do? Like, Fikowski was on one of the debate shows the other week, and he was like saying it sarcastically, but he meant it, of like, if you just do your videos properly and do your reps properly, nothing bad can happen to you, but people will still fuck it up. And it's like, that's Hiller's whole career is based on that, on the fact that people are either looking for shortcuts or they're too stupid to pay attention to what they're doing. And then those same people go crying to their audience saying like, oh, boo-hoo, like, look, he's bullying me. Like, go get in the comments, please. And then those people don't even know what the video is, don't know what the context is, don't know what was said. They just say, that girl I think is hot or that guy I think is ripped complained, I'm going to grab my pitchfork and go and attack Hiller. And they don't even know what they're talking about. They're like, oh, you're a bully. It's like, okay, show me a specific example where I bullied someone. You know, it's just like it's rife. Like it's rife in like Danny Spiegel in Wadapalooza, a video I did talked about like negativity, toxic negativity in CrossFit. Fucking victimization in CrossFit is what the problem is. Like people, that's why people perceive it as negativity, because they constantly think they're being attacked. And it's like, no, this isn't an attack. This is a mirror. You are being shown a mirror of what you are like, and you do not like it. And I'm sorry for the way I'm pronouncing that, Chase. It probably sounds ridiculous.
I got you. Yeah, no, I got you.
He got you because you held your hand up. He was like, oh, okay, yeah, I understand.
Well, another point to that, Pedro, is that I'll get messages from people who tell me that I shouldn't be any association with someone like Hiller or someone like Savan. I was like, what does it matter to you? Like I would say, opinion of Savan or my opinion of Hiller is why does that matter to anyone else but myself? It's me, it's myself. And when I have those opinions, like it's on a spectrum, right? I don't love everything anyone does, but like, just because the fact that maybe you didn't like what they said or what they do, or maybe how you perceive of what they stand for, all of a sudden that means I need to take the same position as you. I'll take my position, right? And now there's certain things that have come up on both of those fronts where with my position in CrossFit that I don't necessarily agree with, or didn't think maybe it was necessary to go after someone or something that CrossFit did in that fashion. But at the same time, it's like, that's my personal position and my personal opinion. I keep it to myself. And another question is like, why would I go on the Savan podcast? I was like, the exact reason of why I should go on that podcast, stay in the position I am. Because if I come onto a show, I'm wearing a hat right now. It's like, I represent CrossFit. I work for CrossFit, right? I work for CrossFit in the affiliate department, but I feel like I also work for CrossFit in the sport department when it comes to announcing or the podcast, right? I have a duty to represent CrossFit in the best way I believe it should be represented. I'm behind the scenes in a sense, not for everything, but if something comes up, for an example, we're on a podcast with those guys and the Jada Coons thing had just happened and they're just going after him. It's like, I stood up and stood my ground, at least for Jay, in a way that we should proactively approach this. You may not I don't necessarily agree with the way those things were rolled out from CrossFit's perspective. It was a bad look. And if anybody says otherwise, like, I think you're fooling yourself, and I would just be a yes man for CrossFit. But at the same time, it's like, I should be in that position, right? I should be in a position to maybe stomp out a rumor or to stand up for someone else. And I will be in that position when it's necessary. So to say that I shouldn't go on there to be any association, I think is actually quite ignorant in the fact that, no, I should be on there because I will speak at least my side of the story or defend CrossFit's side of the story, or at least my opinion on the matter, versus what tends to happen sometimes is just a one-way steamroll of certain things that happen. So the fact that people will come to me and say, why support this? I'm like, what is my being in that same room or that same podcast with that position or person shows unwavering support of who they are and what they're doing. Right? That's your opinion and the way you perceive that. I see in a position is like, I'm glad we have people in the CrossFit space that go, like Don goes on Pedro's podcast, and Dave and Boz and Katie freaking Henniger and Don Fall go on Savan's podcast. Are they guilty by association? No, right? And so maybe because I'm not a big fish when it comes to that position, I am less than or should be against that. Right. And so I go on there to be a part of that situation if I need to support whichever avenue I believe I should.
It's interesting as well, though. I've had that where people will message or say to me in person, like, how can you be friends with Hiller and Savan? And how can you go on that show? And like, I remember the last time I used to defend it. I used to be like, well, they're like really ridiculously supportive of what I do, and probably the most supportive group I've ever engaged with. They like get what I'm doing, understand why I'm doing it. They believe in what I'm doing. They do things to help me do it. They're entertaining to be around. They're funny. And then I remember like replying to one person. I just said, why would I go on the most successful and widely viewed podcast in the CrossFit space. Fuck me, I can't think of any reasons why. And then it was after that one that I just stopped replying to the messages of like, why I just reply, okay, and nothing else. Because like no matter what you say, they're not gonna say, oh, okay, cool, thanks. They're gonna say, well, I just think, it's like, okay, do you want me to just not go on anymore for you? Is that like,
Right.
it's just like nonsense.
I think the two issues are, one, that people kind of want just to build echo chambers. So they just want that if I go on this podcast, they all agree with everything that we're going to say. And so they're just yes and everything. Whereas I think, Chase, your point of saying like, no, if we want to have a discussion about a topic, we need different points of view. So we need someone, so if everybody believes the same thing and feels the same way, well, the discussion's ended. You're all just, agreeing with each other and building these little echo chambers, and that can go like either way on the same topic, right? Whereas discussion is from different viewpoints, and even at the end it might be, well, I still feel this way, but whereas I was very strongly kind of this opinion, now I still think that's the right direction, but I could be open to something on the other side. And then the other thing is that separating, people are varied. They have, depth to them. And so they're going to, as you said, like, believe certain things, feel certain things, just have certain, ideals. And you're not going to agree with all of them. But that shouldn't matter. If I'm there to talk to you about CrossFit, the focus should be on CrossFit. So what you believe in a lot of other avenues of your life shouldn't factor in massively to the discussion we're now having about CrossFit. And I feel that way with like Savan. It's like, just because you don't like the way he, his viewpoint on a number of things doesn't change the fact that he's very good at what he does, and he can make an incredible behind the scenes.
The interesting thing as well, though, Savan is probably like the most accommodating of other people's views of pretty much anyone I've ever met, where you could have a totally like,
it's almost like I don't even know where he stands on things.
Yeah, some things is pretty obvious, but like,
it's true. Some things like, I said.
I've had conversations with him like way back where he was kind of talking about the vaccine and stuff, and I was like, well, like, to be honest, I just kind of had to get it because of work. Like, if I don't, like, if I don't get it, I can't go to work. I can't, like, my wife can't go to work. Like, we can't get money. I'm just kind of screwing myself over. And then he was like, someone who's very vocal about his opinions on it could have easily been like, you're a fucking idiot, and like buried me. Just goes, yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, I'm just sitting on my couch, so it doesn't really make any difference to me. Like, I understand. And like, that was it. And like other people who, like the people who are criticizing him, I don't believe would have it in them to say, yeah, I get your point. Like, I don't think they have that. And I think that's what the issue is, that they see someone who disagrees with them, or people who disagree with them, or do things a different way. They can't empathize with that at all. And they won't secede any ground. I don't know if that's the right word. Cede any ground. They won't like, go towards the middle ground at all, because they don't think the other side will. Whereas in reality, the other side are standing in the middle being like, why are you not coming over? Like, I just want to chat. Oh, fuck you, like, from, miles away. It's just, I don't know, it's crazy. There's just so much contradiction to it. But like, best of luck explaining that to anyone.
I also think like my sort of personal feeling on a lot of this stuff is that, I have strong feelings on certain topics, on certain, things. I believe certain things. And I would want you to honor me in that you allow me to feel the way I feel about certain things, think the way I think about certain things, and believe what I believe on certain things. And the only way I can expect you to accept that I feel this way is I have to accept that you might feel another way. And like, I would never want you to force me to think something different or to feel a different way about something. And I'm happy to discuss it. Sure. But like, there's a difference between an open discussion that we end up going, well, yeah, I still feel the way I do and you still feel the way you do. Great.
Right.
But the only way I can expect that people don't force me to do something I don't want to do is that I can't force them to do something they don't want to do.
But like, pick a topic, and that's the biggest problem, is that we're not having conversations one way or the other. And you talked about depth, and I was like, yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people that have depth to them, but then I also think there's a lot of people that have no depth to them, and that the fact that they disagree with something that you do say or believe, and then they automatically think that you have to be erased, what you say, it's like, no, I have such shallow depth to me that this is my playing field and everything must be with what I believe, see, and think to be true. And if anybody has this opposing view of me, like, not only are you wrong, but like you have to be either proven that I'm right or removed from, like canceled or whatever you want to call it. And I think the good thing there, and the lesson to be learned, is that exactly what you said, Jason, is like, I'll respect what you believe as long as you don't force me to do that as well. And I think that goes with anyone's ideals, whether it's religion or, pick a topic, politics. And it's like, just don't force me to live in your world, right? As long as you don't force me to live in your world, whether it's your real world and I'm in fantasy land, is like, as long as that happens, it's like, I'll watch your story from afar. That's what we're all doing anyways. You're driving around in your car, you're passing thousands of people every day thinking like they're in your world. It's like, no. It's like everyone has their own universe that they're driving in, or they're walking.
The star of your own show, aren't you?
Exactly. And you are, right? But at the same time, the NPCs in your life do not have to participate in that. They are just passing by and passing through.
I'm actually just a supporting character in my life.
Yeah, well, we've understood that your wife is clearly the main player.
Hey, yeah, it's welcome to my world.
I know you need to shoot off soon, Chase. I don't know how you are for time. I had one final question for you guys.
Oh yeah, time.
And I think it goes back to, because I know, Pedro, you've spoken many times about questions that people ask, games athletes, or ask people, and sort of your podcast almost came of that kind of, not, kind of feeling like maybe the questions were a bit boring or a bit samey, or I think you call like waiting room questions, kind of this idea. And I know we've watched a lot of the behind the scenes. I don't know if you picked up on Justin's comment about the kind of the amount of media at the games. I have clipped that. I will post that. So by the time this episode's come out, I will have put a little post of that, because I do think it's interesting, because he was sort of just saying like, it's good to see so much media at the games. He wants to promote the sport, but he doesn't want to be asked the same question 3 times or give the same answer 3 times. And I think for us, that we also consume media, we also don't want to hear the same question multiple times. And particularly if it's, I guess, it's only going to be a small number that are getting that level of access as well. So do you think we're going to, or is there anything that we can do to get, either better questions or different people asking questions, or do you feel that it is improving, or do you think the kind of that top tier that are getting that access, it's going to always be sort of that kind of, I don't know how to describe the questions. Peter, you probably know better.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying.
I think the issue is that, in order to, with the exception of Savan, in order to get that access, you have to be vanilla. It has to be like safe. Like, it's to people's taste. It's not to my taste, but it is, obviously they get a shit ton of views. It's to people's taste to be asked, what do you eat? And what, like, they just want to see, and they like the people that are asking the questions just as much as they like the people that are answering the questions. So, like Craig Ritchie has built his whole shtick on it. The Buttery Bros, same, like that's their whole thing. They have huge platforms, like huge audiences. They've done incredibly well for themselves. Talking Elite Fitness, same, like huge platform that they've built up like over the last however like 7-8 years. But what people go there for, they go for like untainted, unbiased, like safe, how are you type questions. Like, how was that workout? Not like, hey, what happened on that second bar? Like, you kind of messed up a bit there. I think Savan is the exception to that. I think due to his legacy and like associations he has and stuff, he got the access, and I think he's the antidote to those type of questions. And his, hopefully, what is priming up to be an absolute whopper of a release when this goes to the general population. I think the views are going to skyrocket. And I think that's the antidote. I think that can prove that, oh shit, there's actually a place for everything. There's a place for safe and what I would describe, but other people wouldn't, what I would describe as boring, and what I would describe as like, fucking hell, like ask them something with a little bit of meaning to it. But other people like it. Other people will only watch Craig Ritchie, will only watch the Buttery Bros because that's what they want. They want that boring, safe, like, don't raise my pulse, whatever you do type of interview. And that's fine. There's a place for it. But that's like, in my opinion, CrossFit is like, it's as close as you can get to a cult. And I think for cultishness, you need to have like those type of charismatic leaders. And I think like that's what Savan brings. That's why he has such a vehement following. That's why his behind the scenes will do incredibly well for 3 reasons. Because he's done it before, he's proven he can do it really well. It's incredibly entertaining. It's lasted longer than any other type of content in the space. And it was the genesis of like all of the documentaries and stuff all came from him and from that. The second thing is he does it incredibly well, like amazingly well. The third reason that I think it will do really well is because people will latch onto it and say, I love Savan and I love what he's about and I love the community that he's built around him and I'm part of that and I'm going to watch the fuck out of this. I'll watch it 5 times if it means it's going to happen again. And I think there was from what I can understand, there was a race to be first after the games is over of who can release something the quickest. Whereas Savan played the long game and said, let's make the best thing we can possibly make. Let's take our time putting it together and see what comes out. And I've adapted that since of like, I used to rush and be like, shit, I need to get day 1 out. And then I kind of came to realization of like, what the fuck is a rush? If once it's not time sensitive, which is what that other vanilla type stuff tends to be, of like, well, you just finished workout number 1. What was it like? And then you're on to workout number 2 next. Tomorrow, nobody gives a shit. Whereas if you're asking about the person and you're showing about the person and what they're like in that scenario, I'm watching Dave Sharenka now and like Elliot Simmons and whoever else in Savan's thing. And I'm like, fucking love this guy. And everything he's talking about is relevant because he's talking about character and he's talking about like his beliefs and how he's gotten to where he is. Not like telling his life story, but he's saying like that last workout made me think this. I don't care what the workout is. I don't care what happened in the workout, but I want to see his face when he's cut. And I want to see his face when he survives. And I think that's the difference. And I'm hopeful that Savan's success with this, and hopefully if he gets to do it again at semifinals or next year or whatever, that it will prove that there is a space or there's a gap and potential for other people to do it, not just the bland kind of safe stuff.
I'm hoping that people, because I also find that, as you were saying, you get to know the athletes so much better. You get to know their personalities. And I'm hoping that they get more followers, they get more people interested in them. And then maybe there's a knock-on effect of they realize, oh, actually, when I open up and people get to know the real me, that draws them in. So actually, I'm happier to maybe go on this podcast or to be interviewed by this person or to go here and speak to someone because
like Savan basically made Josh Bridges the platform that he has. Like he propped him up and then Josh took off and did the rest. Like if it wasn't for the behind the scenes and stuff from the documentaries, Josh should be like, I don't know what
he'd be a fan favorite like a lot of the guys were at the time. But yeah, what Josh has done, and you guys talk about is like maybe they'll open up more, is like they have to be given an opportunity. And you see with a lot of these platforms and media in the space is they ask, Pedro said vanilla or bland, and I just say it is lazy, just absolute lazy, like questions, lazy research, laissez-faire attitude is like, you're here to talk to me versus I'm here to show people who you are. And that's where I see a lot of this media in the space and questions asked on the competition floor is like, how boring can we get? How lazy do we have to be to ask someone the same, or ask any athlete that comes to you the same things, or talk about, like, even if I was on the broadcast and just me, every time kettlebell swings, I'm just going to talk about the same 3 things every single time. It's like, no, the way you talk adjusts to the person that you're talking to. And if you took the time to do some research to get more in depth of who they are, or if you were curious about those questions that you don't have the answers to, ask the damn question. Right? That's how you get to know these people. Not what are they going to do for nutrition tonight, or how are they going to get recovered between the events, or what was your strategy? It's like, of course, Justin's talking about that. Now, I will say something to Justin too, is that, or about what he was talking about, not to Justin personally, but if you were annoyed that 4 people in the same day asked you the same questions because they never saw anyone else ask you that question. Welcome to the show, bro. Right? How, like, it'd be like me coaching the 7 p.m. class. I've coached 8 classes in the day, and every single class did the same thing wrong in every single class. And I treated the last person of the day as if they were the same person in every class that I told to change that one thing. Right? And I just lashed out at them. That's also, I believe, on the athletes too, is like, listen, if you crashed on your bike in event 1 and 8 different people come and interview you by themselves, they're going to ask you that question, and you better be prepared to answer it. Now, if it's like, I've been asked this question for 7 straight years on ESPN in front of the whole world, I can be tired of maybe that question. But if it has something to do with something that happened in the moment, get used to it, bro. Not everybody is consuming content at a level of which any of us do, or anybody. Maybe it's not even produced yet. So if something significant happened to you that day, you better be ready to talk about it to everybody.
But even as well, like, if you're skilled, change the topic. Like, you know, to use a tangent, be like, oh yeah, and then this, you know, like, change it. Like, if you're sick of talking about the same thing, answer it a different way. Or comes back to that, like what Chase is saying about the laziness. Like, you can ask people about their food and nutrition without asking them, hey, what are you going to do for food and nutrition? Like at Wadapalooza, I heard Hopper say to Dallin, he just said 5 guys. And I remember hearing him say before, at every competition he goes to, he has 5 guys at night. That's how he like eats. Like, that's what he eats. So I went to Ricky and I said, where are you going after this? And he said food. And I was like, right, here's an opportunity to compare him to Hopper and see how he responds when I tell him that one of his teammates is going to go and eat fast food. So I was like, oh, you're going to go to 5 guys with Hopper. And you can see Ricky literally glances over with like hatred in his eyes, where he's like,
but that's creativity, right? That's in depth. That's you doing your homework.
Content that otherwise would not have come up. Instead of just going over to Rick and be like, so what are you going to eat tonight now after this? And then he says his answer. I go, cool. And early bed, and how's the body feeling after 2 days of competition, and what are your plans for the first workout tomorrow? It's like, just fucking shoot me. Like, you know, it's like, come on, like a little bit of nuance to what you're talking about, a little bit of like zhuzh it up a little bit, find a different way. If you're going to ask the same questions, fine, but ask in a different fucking way. So you don't
like strategy question is totally value too, right? But it's like, what do you see that you need to ask the question is? It's like, hey, not like, hey, what was your strategy for the pull-ups in this event? It's like, you opened with 22 and then you went to 10 and then singles afterwards. And it took, you took 18 breaks. Like, what happened there? That's the same question of strategy. And it's like, clearly you had a plan. Nobody decides to do 27 singles at the end of 30 pull-ups. So what happened? Right? That's the same thing. Like, just
I would have gone with, that was a really interesting strategy that you went with, doing the 20, the 10, and the singles. Did you know you were going to do that from the get-go?
Yeah.
I probably would have just said, oh, you kind of shit the bed on the pull-ups there. What happened?
Yeah. I was like, bad at strict pull-ups, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. You just walk up and go, pull-ups are hard, aren't they? Yeah. And then walk away.
Yeah.
It all centers around depth again, right? Depth of understanding, depth of emotion, depth of the ability to accept other people for who they are and what they believe.
But then when if you voice, or if you verbalize that, like, we'll probably get criticized for this now, and it'll be like, oh, you're so negative. Why do you have to be so negative? And it's like, no, like, we're offering a solution. Like, we're saying, this is what we don't like, and this is how we would like it to be. And it's not like we're asking for a specific race or a specific gender of like interviewers to be banished. It's like, we are literally saying, like, just stop asking the questions the way that you're asking them.
We're not asking you to get fired. We're asking you to get better.
And instead, it'll be seen as like, oh, you're so negative, oh, classic, like, just negativity. But what those same people want is, they want positivity. But what they classify as positivity, I classify as just like vapidness of devoid of reality, where it's just like, hey, you're doing a great job. Okay, thanks for the feedback, I guess. It's like,
a nice job.
You're super out. Yeah, you're fantastic. You're just the best. And it's like,
inside and outside, you are the most beautiful person I've ever seen pick up a barbell. And the way you move is just, it moves me. I was like, what the fuck are we talking about?
And you've got great hair, but they can't say it's red unless they've got a daughter or they know of someone who's got you know,
True.
a kid with red hair.
Even if you don't know him, like clearly this is exactly what this is. Nobody else recognizes this.
Anyway,
Oh,
thank you
Lord.
so much, guys. I know Chase
Yeah,
has to
man,
shoot
thank
off.
you.
He's got a. You pick up the kids now? Is that
I'm
what?
gonna go pick up a redhead from school. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
Why are you
Yeah,
picking
you-
up Tim Paulson's kid?
Yeah. Just a random one on the street.
Yeah, he said they're
Anyone
friends.
will do. They all look the same.
Okay, Chase, if people want to follow all the stuff you're doing, where's the best place for them to find you?
Just throw a rock, man. You guys can see at Get With The Programming is my programming show with Bill Grundler, and then the CrossFit Games podcast, which I get to sit down and try to break news from time to time from the game space or articulate new things on the horizon. And I think that's it. That'll do.
Yeah, we'll put some links somewhere for people to find those things. Pedro, where do you want people to go to find your stuff? What are you promoting at the moment?
YouTube. I'd like to up my subscribers on YouTube if possible.
Ooh, yeah.
So you can search Coffee Pods and Wads on there, or at Coffee Pods and Wads, which is to date my biggest regret with the branding that I did at the start, that I did just write and. I was like, oh, that's cool, and I put an N instead of an and. Yeah, I got some videos that are some clip. I did 2 good vlogs from Wadapalooza. They're doing well, and then I made some clips. They're not doing well at all. So if you go and watch them, that would be great. And debate show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. British time. And yeah, just regular shows every so often. And fake news, if just go, even if you don't watch it, just say this was hilarious, and then I'll know that you watch it and you just comment it anyway.
Even if you don't watch it, just make sure you forward it on to the people in fake news, just in case they didn't see that they've been tagged. Just make sure they see it.
They might get it from you if I'm blocked.
I'll send it. That'll be my new job. We'll just be forwarding it on to everyone.
Reposting. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me, guys. It was a fun chat around the sort of the media space within CrossFit. I enjoyed that a lot. Thank everyone for listening, and I guess we'll be back next week with some more guests, hopefully, unless they've listened to this one and decided that